Welcome into the latest episode of the Betting the Pitch Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Real G. Warner. On tonight's episode, we will be covering the Sport Club Freiburg kit that I'm wearing, plus the Europa League Match Day 2. I don't think there's any interest in Conference League because there's a bunch of teams that no one even knows the country they come from, including myself, which is disappointing. But unfortunately, that competition has drifted off into a far, far away land, somewhere in between Azerbaijan and really further Eastern Europe. But we're going to do Europa League on this episode. We're going to have a best bet from the entire episode, but we're going to smash together the early window, the 11:45 Central Time, 12:45 Eastern Time, plus the late window, the 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central for the United States listeners, watchers, and things like that on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. If you leave a 5-star review, it's huge for the search rankings. Just got our 201st subscriber on YouTube. Thank you for that. We'll shout out the people as I see their names later in the show. And of course, you're always welcome to check out patreon.com/real_G Warner. That's the best place to get all my stuff across all sports for a very low price per month. I think most people that see it would believe it. And to me, I feel like it's a great spot to get what was a really good baseball day today. Got a lot, of course, and futures and such riding on tomorrow, but we'll see how that all goes. And we're ultimately going to discuss soccer on this podcast. So thank you all for coming in late night with a real_G Warner. We'll see how many yawns come out. But let's get to the first part of the Europa League calendar. We're 5-2 on our best bets so far this year and what I've watched. And we'll be keeping the grading going as long as possible. I'm trying to do that in a much more clean, documented fashion so no one calls me a tout scammer on Apple Podcasts anymore. 1-star reviews, that hurts. But thank you for letting me know. And, all we can do is try to grow and be better moving forward. So let's go to the Europa League, where I do have the lines pulled up now in front of me. We'll start at 11:45 Central Time, local time. I think that would be 6:45 in most of Europe, but of course they have time zone differences too. We have FCSB of Bucharest. They're hosting and welcoming Young Boys Bern from Switzerland to Romania. Currently, FCSB are at Pick'em right now. A little bit more juice on the home team. Totals 2 3/4. Juice very heavily to under right now. So I'm gonna try to do at least the best I can with trying to show where lines have been and where they've moved from. So FCSB, as soon as I first saw lines, they were a quarter goal favorite. So clearly some money has come in on Young Boys. They were getting a fair amount of respect, I thought, in the first match day in the Europa League after crashing out of Champions League, but clearly a much different level. Maybe there's some belief in the system in Bern, but ultimately they lost their manager last year, Christian Ilzer, I believe, to TSG Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga. And they're still a team that I'm looking to be against. So my biggest interest here is to FCSB, even though they're a pretty small budget Romanian club. I think there's a lot of history with FCSB, but Stade Bucuresti, I believe, are the side I'm looking for at Pick'em. And so I'll put that on my list, especially as I feel like we're getting a discount from the initial -1/4 I saw earlier in the week. We'll move next to, we got a bunch of matches in this early window, unlike the Champions League where there are just two. So we'll start with, we'll move next to Panathinaikos. They are hosting Go Ahead Eagles, welcoming them to Greece, to Thessaloniki, I believe. Go Ahead Eagles, one of the smaller clubs from the Eredivisie, the Dutch or Holland top division. They were surprise qualifiers, lost their manager who's hired away, I believe, to a Bundesliga club in Germany. So, and there hasn't been a lot of respect for Go Ahead Eagles so far. They're currently 1-goal underdog with almost all the juice on their side, which is, I guess, a little bit flattering. Total is 3 in this one, juiced all the way to under. So the big question is, can Go Ahead Eagles play up this competition level? Panathinaikos, I thought were pretty talented when I've watched them over the years. I think the Europa League's a step up in competition for them, but ultimately the Conference League is so much lower now that I think they're probably right where they deserve to be. 1-goal favorite feels like a lot, especially giving a full goal of insurance to a club from a more expensive league like the Eredivisie, and ultimately Go Ahead Eagles had a good year last year, but I think I still need to wait and see on how Go Ahead Eagles, who've really just shown up at the European stage, at least since I've been following the sport for 5 or 6 years and podcasting about it. So I want to wait and see what they do. We'll move next to Bologna hosting Sport Club Freiburg, as I'm wearing a kit of Vincenzo Grifo, very similar name to mine. And when COVID was happening, there's no sports on. I guess that we woke up early in the morning on Saturdays to watch the German Bundesliga, and the habit began. Bologna currently half a goal favorites right now to Freiburg, a little bit more juice, totals 2.5, juice all the way to under. Now Bologna get a home match after losing at Aston Villa in the opener. Villa's first win, I think, of the entire season, which was disappointing because Bologna, I thought, were right in the match and deserved a lot of equalizer opportunities and probably should have stuck one or two in the net, maybe even one. Ended up conceding a goal on a rebound from outside the box, and that was that. So they need to show some offense here. It's been a little bit different. Bologna had an incredible season 2 years ago, made Champions League, and then drifted a little bit when they lost their manager and a bunch of their best players. Well, they brought in a former Fiorentina manager who had just basically been fed up with the budget or club or leadership or all of the above. And things have been going well, and I think Bologna are going to be very good in this competition. With that said, Sport Club Freiburg, they've basically had their legend manager retire. They I guess, promoted a youth team coach who had been a captain at Sport Club Freiburg for a long time under Christian Streich, the former God Messiah type manager. And I think the real question, besides how they got to Europa League last year, which was a lot of great home results, was can they do it a second year? And I'm not sure I'm a believer. A half of a goal, I think, reflects in a German Bundesliga side traveling to an Italian Serie A club's home ground. And I'm not really sure that I trust Freiburg yet, like, just at all, because it's been a pretty rough start to the season. They had a good comeback win against Stuttgart a couple weeks ago, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be proven. I'd probably lean under a little bit here too. It's about what I made it, 2.46 versus the current 2.5. Juice very heavily to under, so it's probably even lower than that. But I think Freiburg, to me, they kind of need to prove defense, offense, special teams. If you're talking American football, they need to prove everything, manager, all that sort of stuff. So I think at this point, I'm going to probably stay on the sideline and not add anything for this one either. Move next to Fenerbahce. They're hosting Nice in a battle of more big clubs. I mean, Europa League is still legit competition. If you're not paying attention to it, you should. I've definitely made a ton of money, not so much last year, but a couple seasons ago, and trying to get back to that promised land where it seemed like every bet I made was a winner in Europa League. Fenerbahce, 3/4 goal favorites to Nice. Total is 2.5, juice very heavily to over, and a little bit more juice on the Fenerbahce side, who have moved on from Jose Mourinho. I actually wanted to look in where the heck he's actually coaching. Let's see. He's currently the head coach of Premier Liga club Benfica. So he's come in for Bruno Lage, I guess. And Domenico Tedesco has taken over Fenerbahce. He was kind of an up-and-coming manager, just like the current Die Mannschaft, the national team of Germany manager. And that is, its name is escaping me, but is at Leipzig and then moved to Bayern München. Let me check if anyone's in the comments. That would be great if you could throw that in there. Who is, I'll just type it in. I guess we have AI to help. Die Mannschaft manager. It's going to kill me. Yes, Julian Nagelsmann. So Nagelsmann and Domenico Tedesco were compared forever and ever about being in the same like study class to get your whatever licenses to coach, I don't know, I guess an international soccer level, or maybe in Germany, or whatever the rules are with that in Europe. It's amazing. I guess you can just be a coach here you probably need a grad degree to coach at college, but anyway, unrelated. But basically, their careers took off in very different directions. What happened with Tedesco is he eventually found his way to Leipzig. Things didn't go great there. They haven't gone great a lot of places. He was recently coaching as national team manager at Belgium and has gotten some pretty good jobs across various landscapes. Whereas Nagelsmann went all the way to the top to Bayern München, apparently dated the wrong daughter, and then things got really out of hand. But now he's heading Fenerbahce, and the Turkish clubs on the European stage are forever going to like fail to live up to expectations. It's been amazing to me that they're so bad, considering they have such prominent names, mainly from the English Premier League and such. But Fenerbahce's roster is not as strong as it has been. They're a 3/4 goal favorite to Nice, who were a quarter goal underdog at home to Roma. I thought playing very well for a first half, and then a bad 7 or 8 minutes where they conceded 2 goals. A penalty brought them back into it, but they still lost their opener. I'm not sure that I'm looking that negatively on Nice, though they were pretty bad in this competition last year, didn't even make it to the knockout stages, and that was a huge embarrassment for new manager Frank Heiss. But he was ultimately, to me, a huge moneymaker at Racing Club de Lens, and I think he'll I trust in that person and his management style and abilities certainly more than I trust Domenico Tedesco, who's had some great jobs and failed at all of them. He should really go back to Schalke and try to bring them back to the Bundesliga from the Zweitliga. But that's neither here nor there, and probably some bridges were burned or something like that when he took other jobs. With all that said, I think Fenerbahce are extremely overrated. I don't want to play any unders with Turkish clubs because they don't defend on the European level. And early goals can get blown out. We saw Galatasaray visiting Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League match they won a couple weeks ago. So Nice getting three-quarters of a goal is my biggest interest in that matchup. We'll now move to Brann hosting Utrecht as we start to go a little bit off the top five European Soccer League radar. So Brann, smaller club from Norway, I believe, in the Bodo Klimt division, and looking up at them on the table, and we're very competitive in their opener, though are a pretty small name club that I hadn't even seen before, not in the Conference League, not in anything that I've been following. They host Utrecht, another smaller Eredivisie side that have climbed to the Europa League. Good for them. Currently, Brann are quarter goal favorites right now with all the juice totals 2.5, juice all the way to over. And while Go Ahead Eagles, I'm certainly concerned about, and you could probably say the same thing for Utrecht as well. I think they're known best for hosting Armin van Buren concerts. I think it's probably where he's from or something. But to me, I think Utrecht are worth a look because they are a pretty big underdog to a team that really isn't that big in stature. And I'll forever take the Eredivisie in Holland over Norway. Though you could argue Norway's much further through their season because they take a long break during the wintertime. But I think Utrecht are certainly worth a look, and I'll lean to under 2.5 as I generally feel that way when I don't trust the home team to score much. Look to under and the road underdog. We'll move next to Celtic hosting Sporting Braga. Currently Celtic half a goal favorite with almost all the juice totals 2 3/4, juice more to the over. Now Sporting Braga are, I think, fortunate to have won their first match against Feyenoord, conceded a goal and some big chances, and then were all annulled and then took a lead and then held on for dear life and were able to. But Braga to me just aren't that impressive. The nice part for them is they're going on the road as a pretty big underdog to Celtic, who are equally less impressive, especially in attack. There's a fair amount of Premier League players from England that have moved to Scotland to play in the Scottish Premier League for Celtic, and they were a surprising underdog on the road at Crvena Zvezda or Red Star Belgrade in Serbia in the opener. Celtic took a lead, then were kind of conceded and were really hanging on for the end, which was disappointing to me. But I guess Crvena Zvezda moving down from Champions League to Europa League seemed to have a little bit more talent than I was expecting, but still get out of there with a half a unit win, so that was good. And really is certainly not something I will ever complain about. But I think Celtic are a pretty big favorite here. So while I didn't say I loved much of what I saw from Sporting Braga, and I feel like they've in good positions to win in Champions League in years past, and that certainly was above their level. But I think as this number continues to climb, I'm interested now, and I guess I'm more interested in Braga the more I talk about it. Move next to Ludogorets. They're hosting Real Betis of the Spanish La Liga. Currently, Ludogorets of Bulgaria, 3/4 goal underdogs with all the juice. Totals 2.5, juice more to the over. And any sort of total that's juiced to over with Ludogorets involved, I'm forever looking under unless it's 1 3/4. So Ludogorets are going to defend like heck. They've got no money compared to Real Betis, who are pretty poor by Spanish standards or by European competition standards, and probably should be in Champions League based on the size of their club, the fan base, et cetera, et cetera. But they just continue to frolic, and usually the Conference League, but are now in the Europa League this season. Good for them. But I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Real Betis. They're forever stuck between competing for La Liga to try to earn a Champions League berth and competing in Europa League. And I think Ludogorets are going to sit in and defend no matter that they're at home. So my biggest interest here is under 2.5. Moving next to Roma, hosting Lille in another big matchup for Roma. As you can see the scarf behind me. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. And if you want to leave a comment and I read it, I will have whatever podcast is relevant to, I'll read it on there. And if it's something related to NFL, which we do NFL podcasts on this Betting the Pitch Podcast Network, not the simplest name for that, I get that, but we still do it. And A_Sticker and I will be happy to read your comments if you got something to say. We'd love to get a little bit deeper into that. And if you're watching us, I guess, a recorded version on YouTube or live version on StreamYard via YouTube, you can certainly hit subscribe and become follower number 202 if you're not there already. But thanks all for your support, and I really appreciate you all being here for as long as you have been. So let's go to back to that Roma-Lille matchup. Roma currently 3/4 goal favorites with more juice, totals 2.5, juice more to the over. And Lille are a way different team than they were this October 1st recording date of last season. They were in Champions League, which is very different than Europa League. They were awesome and leading Champions League probably at this point. Got off to a great start there, made it to the knockout rounds, and then struggled there. Then kind of the season went in the tank as well. And that's why they're in Europa League. But they're going to Roma, who have not been scoring as much as a Gian Piero Gasparini team probably should be. The former manager of Atalanta, who basically stepped up into the chaos at Roma and has really stabilized things. For that reason, I'm staying far away from fading Roma at this point, and I don't think there's much I want to do with totals because I'm still expecting overs from Gasparini, but we haven't seen them so far. Moving next to the last matchup of this early window, I'll give you a best bet selection for the early first half, and then we'll get on to the second half. We have Victoria Plzeňa. They're hosting Malmo of Sweden. Victoria Plzeňa, you might know Pilsner Urquell, the beers from Czechia. From Plzeňa, currently Pilsen a half a goal favorite with all the juice. Total is 2 3/4 juice all the way to under. I believe that's where Pilsner comes from. But anyway, Victoria Plzeňa, they're half a goal favorites with all the juice, and I think they're a quality team, but I don't really like them in a favorites role. So, do I want to back Malmo though? They're a pretty small club from Sweden. Probably not, especially not away from home and against a tough Czech crowd. I think for that reason, I'll probably look away from this one and not be as interested. For my best bet from this early first window, which I'll then smash together with an ultimate best bet selection from the late window to decide on what the ultimate best bet is, and that's how you grade these episodes. I'm going to go with Nice, 3/4 goal underdogs on the road at Fenerbahce. That I'm sure Istanbul is going to be going crazy for this matchup, but I think Nice can handle it. We'll move next to Celta de Vigo hosting PAOK of Thessaloniki in Greece. Celta de Vigo of Vigo, the western part near Portugal of Spain. Currently, Celta de Vigo 3/4 goal favorites with more juice. Totals 2.5. Juice more to the under. As I check to see if we have any comments in here. Yes, we do. Aha, SSB28. What's up? Hello. What jersey are you wearing? Well, since you came in and we got a great stopping point, put it right above your comment. We are wearing the Sports Club Freiburg. If I could spin, maybe I can show it. Ooh. Oh no, they have unfortunately the name's at the bottom, but it says Sport Club Freiburg on the back. So that's I guess all we can do here. But thanks for coming in, SSB28. Appreciate you coming in there. I hope that you've hit subscribe because I see you're coming in from YouTube. But if you haven't already, do so, and you'll get everything you could ever want on a YouTube channel to discuss sports betting across soccer, American football, and we'll see if some baseball stuff comes out there. I don't know. Plenty of stuff coming out on pregame.com as well, covering that sport for sure. And if you want the real hardcore plays and everything you look for, pregame.com. Not pregame. Patreon.com. So that's real_G Warner. So back to Celta de Vigo, 3/4 goal favorites at home to PAOK. Total is 2.5. Juice more to the under. Celta got off to a tough start on the road at Stuttgart, at least one of the worst venues you could have to attend. But now they get to go home and play PAOK. And that's certainly a step down in competition. They haven't been a 3/4 goal favorite to many teams so far this season in La Liga. So they're finally positioned to try to kind of express themselves and see what this new lineup's going to look like because ultimately Celta have lost a ton of really good talent to Sevilla and to Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League, and they got to figure out what they're doing. I think until PAOK hit a full goal underdog, I'm probably not interested there. So we'll move next to Basel 1893. They are hosting VfB Stuttgart, speaking of. Currently, Basel, half a goal underdog, more juice on Stuttgart away. Total is 3, juice all the way to over, and I'm forever into home underdogs, especially. Joe Dollar, longtime Patreon subscriber, he knows that I'm into underdogs and unders, but the home underdogs is probably the biggest sick thing that I have going for me. Sorry, sickos, me looking through the window with a hoodie on, but that's what we're doing, and that's where we've been, and that's if you see me taking road favorites, then you should ask me to blink twice if everything's all right. Okay, and so Basel, I mean, they were not very good. Speaking of Freiburg, they played at Freiburg last week, and now they're getting another German Bundesliga side. Pretty tough way to start their season. Not a lot of travel, but still not great. I think Stuttgart, ultimately, they have some troubles in their offense. They were sitting Furic, who's one of their best young attackers, in favor of other players who seem to keep getting hurt or leaving the club, like Mick Voldemada or Voltemesi, who left for Newcastle. I think they have some problems. So I think biggest interest for me, especially the really high total right now at 3, just all the way to over. I'll lean to Basel getting a half of a goal at home, and ultimately I'll take that under 3 as well. Plus money, probably get to 3 1/4 before kickoff. Feyenoord then hosts Aston Villa. Currently, Feyenoord quarter goal underdogs with all the juice at home. Totals 2 and 3/4, juice all the way to under. Extremely juice at the moment, and we'll see where this one ends up going. I don't see no reason to get off the fade Aston Villa train. You could argue the first matchup in this competition, Europa League, was made a lot more difficult with 1-0 lead, and Ollie Watkins just hit a penalty down the middle that was not only saved, but kicked out like almost to midfield by Lucas Skorupski of Bologna. So I think there's a lot of problems at Aston Villa. I don't know if they just all hate Unai Emery or just aren't listening or the new transfers haven't really worked out because there's a lot of the same players there. But to me, Aston Villa has brought in some reinforcements, Jadon Sancho, for example. But I still don't believe in Aston Villa, and I really believe in Dutch Eredivisie at home crowds. So Feyenoord, quarter goal underdog, very interested there. And I lean to under 2 and 3/4, so it's basically 2.5 across the marketplace. So we'll see where that number ends up settling out. But home underdog, as I just kind of went through a whole diatribe on, certainly my interest in that one. Genk then hosts Ferencvaros, currently Genk of Belgium, three-quarter goal favorites. Almost all the juice on Ferencvaros of Budapest, Hungary away. Total is 3, just pretty heavily to under right now. And Ferencvaros, I'm amazed by these gigantic totals they keep getting. They were one of the simplest all unders all the time type of squads. Took a red card in the first half to Victoria Plzeň after falling behind in the Europa League opener. I guess they've changed managers, and that explains a change in how they play. I would expect them to be more defensive at some point, but I guess until the totals start reflecting that, then maybe we should go with the market and believe there's going to be goals scored. With that said, the push on three is essential in this sport, so I'm always interested in under threes, and I like that we have it here. Moving next to Nottingham Forest, hosting Midtjylland of Denmark, Nottingham Forest of the English Premier League. Currently NFO, a 1 1/4 goal favorite. Almost all the juice on Midtjylland away. Total is 3, juiced all the way to over. And I guess it's because Ange Postecoglou is a manager that everyone expects Ange Ball to return. Well, I haven't been seeing it, and I'm waiting, and it hasn't been around much. I'm sure that with more training sessions, might get to the risky portion, and Ange will not change. He didn't change at Tottenham despite finishing 16th or 17th in the English Premier League. Somehow he won the Europa League as he promises every second year that he's somewhere. He wins something or wins a trophy. I'm interested in fading Nottingham Forest. Midtjylland are, to me, not a great defense, which is a concern, especially as a big underdog away from home. I am interested in the 1 1/4, probably more than the under 3, though. I just don't know that I trust Nottingham Forest to score many goals. I think last year was all really lucky and was a lot because they had a great defense that they could play offense, as weird as that sounds. But now I think they've got to focus on both ends, and that's not a great setup, especially the new manager who's not proven any sort of success in Premier League play or league play for that matter. Maccabi Tel Aviv then hosts Dinamo Zagreb, but host is quote unquote because there's no Israel hosted UEFA anything this year. And apparently, a lot of the countries have lobbied based on their support of Palestine to to basically sentence Israel to the Russian punishment, the aggression for invading Ukraine and not being allowed in UEFA competitions. Well, we'll see what happens there. But that's certainly a news note that I found today when I was checking to see where this match is being played. Anyway, Dinamo Zagreb with a good win against Fenerbahce in their opener. They were in control. They've got some big names in their team. They added a former football club, the Augsburg striker from the German Bundesliga, who scored 2 goals, and they got a good one late as well to put it out of reach. But pretty much they're playing on a neutral site. No one's rooting for Israel anywhere, it seems, in this world, unless you're Israeli, Zionist, or what have you. So Dinamo Zagreb is my interest here. I don't. So as I was saying earlier in this podcast, if I am looking at road favorites, then certainly ask me if I'm okay and make sure I blink twice. But in this situation, not a road game. It's neutral, so they're both on the road. So it seems pretty cheap to get Dinamo Zagreb at Pick'em against a team that's really not showed up in any sort of competition at this level for a while. Moving next to Lyon, hosting Red Bull Salzburg. Currently, Lyon 1 goal favorites. All the juice on Salzburg. Totals 2 and 3/4, just all the way over. Looking like we're going to see 3 pretty soon. Lyon, they were almost automatically relegated for violating financial restrictions. Their president had to step down, and basically they have not built their club. They've had a surprising amount of transfers, and you got a new goalkeeper who saved a huge equalizer from Angers a couple of Fridays ago that would have won me a full bet instead of just a half. But I guess I'll take half goal or half bet winners at this point. I already said I would earlier in the show. But Lyon are not the same strong club they've been in the past. Red Bull Salzburg, they've been the minor leagues for Red Bull of Leipzig in the German Bundesliga and plenty of other clubs throughout Europe. They've been a little bit weaker in talent lately. I saw them live in Champions League at Inter Milan a couple seasons ago as a huge underdog, and unfortunately, our big one here. But I'm not really a believer in Lyon so far this season. I don't think I want much to do with the total, but I'll lean to Red Bull Salzburg, a one-goal underdog in the eastern part of France. Move next, last two matches before we get to the ultimate best bet portion of the show. We have Porto, one-goal favorites, the Crvena Zvezda of Red Star Belgrade of Belgrade, Serbia, Porto of Portugal. Porto, one-goal favorites with all the juice. Total is three, juice all the way to under. So we could see 1.25 here and an under 2 3/4 coming soon. Usually don't see the favorites climbing and the totals dropping, but you never necessarily know. Crvena Zvezda, I thought were pretty good once they fell behind, and were probably in control of most of the match at home in Belgrade, though they should be, even though it was against to me, a bigger name Celtic FC club, Celtic Football Club, that is. I think Porto, though, they've been far inferior to the team that knocked out Juventus a few seasons ago in like round of 16, I think, in Champions League. A huge upset at the time, and then Juventus went in the tank, and kind of Porto has as well. But Porto used to be a really good, stingy defense that would get you on the counterattack. Now they're trying to score goals and outscore everybody. That's not a great setup for me. I think that makes Crvena Zvezda look a little bit more appetizing as a one-goal underdog. It looks like it's going to be 1.25 sometime soon. Lose by a single goal on the road and you still cover. That's my interest for now, though I gotta say Crvena Zvezda has hurt me before, and I don't know how interested I am in them at this point. Last matchup, we have Sturm Graz hosting Rangers, which is another line that kind of puzzled me. And I'll say for the Celtic at Crvena Zvezda matchup in that first one, it was a winner that it puzzled me, and I still went through with it. I am trying to observe some patience, some caution though, because when Rangers, one of the most popular clubs, as I've said before in this podcast, the UK, Scotland, England, and other countries in that area. They seem to dominate the European money, both for Nations League and World Cup qualifiers and such, but also for these European competitions like Europa League. But anyway, Sturm Graz, half a goal favorite in the eastern portion of Austria. Not been that impressive to me for a while. We're playing in Champions League last year, but we're literally completely out of their gourd trying to figure out what to do in there. And we're so naive in so many competitions. But c'est la vie. Currently, Sturm Graz half a goal favorites, giving a result on the road for Rangers a full bet winner, which is very juicy at the moment on the Rangers side, but still is offering a lot. Definitely putting that on my list as possibilities for the best bet portion of the show. Total is 2 3/4. This one juiced pretty heavily to over. I don't know that I feel so much for a total. I would lean under because Rangers are generally pretty good at trying to restrict their opponent in order to win matches. But I think at this point, to me, it's a wait and see until it isn't. So I'm going to do a lot of digging on this Rangers matchup tomorrow before I lock something in. I'm not so worried about a half of a goal with a lot of juice dropping down to a quarter of a goal. I can't imagine this drops to pick 'em, or Rangers are really beloved by the betting markets. But I do think Sturm Graz got a lot to prove, even at this Europa League level versus the Champions League, and that certainly will benefit them playing against inferior competition. I'm just not sure they're that strong themselves. So that'll do it for this episode of the Betting the Pitch Soccer Podcast. I still owe you my best bet from the late window, and of course, the ultimate best bet when I decide if we like that more than Nice getting 3/4 of a goal. Already put out on this same platform, if you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, under Betting the Pitch, or under @the_real_G Warner on YouTube. You can find the NFL podcast recorded with A.M. Schnicker. We did that on Tuesday night this week. That's out there discussing a six-pack of games across the NFL and our best bets. Also, there's Champions League out there, but that's done for the weekend. There will be a weekend preview for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, most likely coming out on Friday, I suspect, plus a pregame.com podcast on Major League Baseball, getting you ready for the second round of the wild card, or second round of the MLB playoffs. That's coming out with Munaf Manji, and there might be some more in the works as well on that platform network. We'll see what happens, and I'll let you all know as soon as I do, or as soon as I'm allowed to say. So for the ultimate best bet portion of the show, let's get through it. I don't see any comments besides what jersey are you wearing. Thank you again for that, SSB28. Hopefully you hit subscribe when you're there. But yeah, so it's time. From the early window in the Europa League, I like Nice 3/4 of a goal They are on the road in a tough place to play, but they're still getting too much. They're at Fenerbahce in Istanbul, Turkey, and Nice, three-quarters of goal underdog. I'll be waiting to see if we get a full goal of insurance, but I'm giving the plays out what they are now, and that is Nice, three-quarters of a goal underdogs on the road. From the late window, the 3 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. across most of Europe, 2 p.m. local time here, Central Time in Dallas, Texas, where I reside. We're going to go with Feyenoord, quarter goal underdogs at home with that huge Dutch crowd. They are at home to Aston Villa, one of the, like I said earlier, clubs from the UK get bet a lot in these competitions, especially European ones, and Aston Villa is no exception. Didn't like what I saw last week or in the first match day in Europa League. Didn't like what I've or don't like what I've seen all season. And Feyenoord, while they have got off to a tough start at Braga, they have a very, very successful coach who's been doing very, very well for Feyenoord. Found themselves in the Europa League, and they don't even have to win. A draw will win you half of a bet. So I will take Feyenoord as my ultimate best bet on this show. That's what you grade me on. That's what we got here, and that's what you'll be seeing in a Instagram reel at the real_G Warner or on YouTube in the Shorts area at the real_G Warner. Same platform or same name handle on both of those platforms. And whichever one you prefer, hit subscribe or follow, and we'll get through it and find some more winners as we go through an entirely long season. We still got like 30 weeks left, so get ready, everybody. Buckle in. It's going to be a great year, and I'll talk to you soon on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. Found anywhere you want to, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you download. 5-star reviews are great, and I love you all.